So your text on page 107 on a sidebar makes a claim that I don't know that I really believe, saying concepts are best developed from the menu. When you really know your menu, you can develop a concept. I suppose sometimes that can be true, but the way I think of it more is that we start with a concept. You might look around your community and see a niche that's missing. For instance, in Fort Bragg, there is no Indian food. And I would have a reasonable idea that somebody who could come up with a decent Indian restaurant might fill that niche. So that would be their concept. From that concept, then I think they could derive a menu. So I don't know that the menu drives the concept. I think that that can be the other way around. Now, of course, there might be situations where your concept is a little vaguer, like you want a family restaurant. Okay, that can go in a lot of different directions. At which point, maybe your menu helps define that. But if you take a look at places like, let's say the Rainforest Cafe or Chuck E. Cheese or other family kind of entertainment restaurants, you can see that their menus actually become very much the same. I might see if I can find some instances of that to post. They might name them a few different things, but the basic stuff is still all chicken fingers and hamburgers and stuff like that. So I don't, again, necessarily know that the menu is at all driving the concept. The concept, I think, is the top-down idea that a community needs a certain type of restaurant. Now, that could be a certain type of cuisine. So, like I just used the example of Indian food. Okay, so that might be one. Mexican restaurant, clearly another type of cuisine that is a concept. Here in Ukiah, now we have Chop Chop, which is street food from primarily Asian countries. And so, that conceptually, I think, helps drive the menu. If in the case of our Fort Bragg Indian restaurant, we wanted to do macaroni and cheese, let's say, as a menu item. Well, our concept would kind of tell us no, that's not the thing to do. So our concept can help define the menu rather than the other way around. Your text also, I think, glosses over some things on pages 108 and 109, maybe also 107, about how you arrive at your menu items, which to me is kind of the heart of making those choices. Now, it does give some voice to this, but first off would be the capability of your staff and the amount of staff that you have. Obviously, more complicated food and complex flavors require more cooks and more skilled cooks, which you may or may not have. You may have to design dishes that fall within the skill level of the cooks that you have available. We are right now facing a cook shortage in this country. Thankfully, you folks are in this program and may help alleviate that. But the truth is, there are not enough cooks to fill the positions that we have. And so everybody's kind of scrambling and struggling. Even well-known kind of top-tier restaurants have this issue. So you have to work within your people's capability. Secondly, your menu excuse me, is going to drive your equipment needs. Until you have discovered or figured out what you want to put on your menu, you don't really know what equipment you might need. Clearly, if you're going to be a fish and chip house, well, I think you understand that basically what you need is a bank of deep fryers and probably little else in terms of hot cooking equipment. You may not even need a stove depending on the size of the place. If you're a pizzeria, clearly you need a pizza oven and maybe you need a small 4-burner to make sauces. Who knows? Maybe you're buying sauces already prepared. Depends on the scope of your place. But your menu items will help you determine what sort of equipment you need. at least when you're getting ready to open. So that's why it helps to have a firm concept, have your menu in place before you go shopping. Now, you can just, sort of do everything and say, well, I know I'm going to need a grill. I know I'm going to need a stove. I know I'm going to need a fryer. I know I'm going to need an oven. And you may, depending on what kind of place you want to have. Afterward, once your equipment is in, and let's say you want to change your menu and you want to do that seasonally, then you have the limitations of your existing equipment because you probably don't have the freedom at that point to install new pieces or move things around or disrupt the flow of the kitchen. So at that point, you're going to have to take into account your equipment's capacity. And so every time I write a menu, I'll go through there, and then after I've come up with my ideas, I try to take a look at my existing equipment and see how much of a burden each dish is going to place on each individual cook or individual station. So if after I do, let's say, a summer menu, I notice that there are a lot of items coming off of the grill, I might need to change those dishes because otherwise the grill cook gets buried while the person working the pasta section, let's say, has less to do or little to do. So you need to balance that out within the equipment load. Now, again, if you have a specialized kind of restaurant like a fish and chip place or a pizzeria, this point may be moot. But assuming that you have dishes that kind of run across the board, you're going to have to take your equipment capacity and the cook's capacities into consideration when you're making your menus. And of course, there is the availability of ingredients. So when we're planning our menus, we want to make sure that we have a good source for everything that we intend to serve. So as things change seasonally, for me, I ask my suppliers, how long will this be available? Will there be a steady supply of this product? Because I don't want to put it on the menu and find that I can't get it afterwards. Also, if I can, I try to have two sources for the same product so that just in case my primary source lets me down, I can get it someplace else. Now, obviously, with some specialty items, this might not be possible, assuming that we're doing business in the Mendocino and Lake areas. Some stuff is just hard to come by here, and trying to develop those sources can be difficult. So, again, we need to stick within what's available and make sure that we have backup sources for those products.